Welcome back, Superboy Beyond fans. We're going to do one of our patented commentaries again. Excuse my stuttering.
You can start over if you like.
No need to start over. We're going to go into the next part of the Alien trilogy, which is Revenge of the Alien parts 1 and 2. We're going to do both parts today. Okay, yeah. We did the Alien Solution last week, and we're just going to do a full hour of this. So get your DVD copies or your online media copies ready. We're going to count you in. So just
to say as well, we will be stopping between episodes so we can count you in again for part 2. Yep. I think if we tried to go through as one continuous thing, we would get out of sync with people so quickly.
Yes, absolutely. If this is your first time doing a commentary with us, you're not going to see any of the actual episode, not going to hear any of the audio. There is going to be a heavily filtered version of the episode in the
middle somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle here. That's just so you can keep track with us and make sure you're still in sync. But it's heavily filtered, so Warner Brothers can't say that we're streaming uploading the episode.
Yeah. There's no real color even in it. It is basically just you can tell what is the episode, but it's basically made of black and white dots. So yeah. So get your DVDs ready.
Yep. I'm going to count
season 1,
in.
episode 13.
Yep. Sorry. I'm going to count you in with a 3, 2, 1, and then just hit your play button. So 3, 2, 1. Go.
It's funny because when we started introducing last week's episode, I said I wasn't sure if my favourite episode was going to be the original or the 2-parter. I'm quite excited going into this because I have to admit, the Alien Solution is the episode I've always watched more often than these two. But who knows? Maybe this one will overtake it. We might have our very first 9.75 rating at the end of this episode.
Well, at the end of these 2 episodes, remember.
Yeah. It is strange, isn't it, though? I know we touched on it last episode, but it's weird that the bodies that the alien goes into retain their own accents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that would work. I'm pretty sure an accent is a learned thing. I don't think it's biological or physical. It's like that joke that a lot of people kept saying when Picard Season 3 came out before we knew why Jack Crusher had a British accent. It's like, what, are just accents genetic in Star Trek? It's like, yeah, he's got a British accent because his dad's Picard. But thankfully they had a better solution for it later. I know I'm getting a bit off topic, but right now we're just watching the previously on Superboy montage anyway.
The only part about the sequence that we're seeing right now where he, sucks the alien in and then put it sitting in the bottle, that doesn't make sense to me, is the alien's been trying to get into his body and he sucks him in? Isn't that kind of counterintuitive?
Earlier in the episode, is it this episode or was it last episode and I just have forgotten already? Like, he tries to get into Superboy. He's like, why can't I get inside you?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like Superboy realizes that even if he does get inside, it doesn't mean he can get any further.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe he just figured it was a risk he was willing to take at that moment because Lana was still in danger.
Yep. And this guy who's stealing drugs from the campus.
Yeah.
He's actually been in other episodes of Superboy.
Yeah, I was trying to work out exactly what I recognise him from. Probably just another episode of Superboy, but
A Wish for Armageddon. He's the
right.
psychic who helps Superboy at the end.
Right, yes. Yeah. I like that guy. That's still such a good episode. It's a shame we did a commentary on that so recently because I kind of want to watch it again.
Who knows if maybe if we ever get Gerard on the show, we could have him do a commentary with us.
Yeah, I mean, as writer for that episode, I mean, I think it would be the most appropriate episode to start off with. Just like, if we had Sherman Howard on the show, I think Mind Games would be the episode we would have to ask him to do a commentary on. Because
Darla Goes Ballistic.
Darla Goes Ballistic, maybe we could say for Tracy Roberts.
Mm.
I mean, preferably, I'd like to have them both on both commentaries, really, but Darla isn't even in Mind Games. I just always want Darla to be alongside Lex. I always thought this actor did a good job. I get that it's not the hardest role in the world, but I still think he did a pretty decent job there.
Yep.
The turn when you see the alien take over his body, like the way he straightens up and his eyes widen, it's simple, but it works,
Yeah.
And scenes like this with Peterson, I always think, man, I wish there were more scenes like this with Superboy testing his powers, seeing how they work, what his limits are. It's the sort of thing that I think if they'd lent into this side of it more in season 1, I don't know. I think it would have been a better show.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not saying it would have to happen every episode, but maybe 4 or 5 times spread throughout. I don't know. It would have been pretty cool.
I just love the interaction he just had with Peterson, where he tells him he's going to use a beam that's based on kryptonite energy on him to cut his skin. He says, "This is going to hurt, isn't it?"
I just love that it's not hurting him at first, showing that kryptonite in small doses isn't that bad for him. But there we go. And it's funny that in this episode, he needs kryptonite to weaken his skin. But later on, obviously, we know that when he gets older in Road to Hell, he can do it just by using his heat vision onto his arm.
Yeah, but remember, he doesn't know that.
Exactly. He's working the stuff out. So I like that it's kind of a progression. Here, he's going for the most complicated solution because he assumes there's no other way. But I guess later he realizes, no, actually there is. I'm powerful enough to hurt myself. I tell you what, though, that was a big flap of skin that he cut off. I never noticed that before.
Ellsworth Cryogenics Lab. Named for Whitney Ellsworth, who was one of the producers on The Adventures of Superman in the 50s.
It's funny, I always get that name confused with Unsworth, for Jeffrey Unsworth, the guy that shot Superman the movie, the cinematographer. Man, what a shame that he died so soon, because those movies, like, even just visually, they never looked as good once he was gone. Guy was just an absolute pro. And I'll tell you what, I like that TJ's got a little bit of something in this episode, since he was just completely missing from the other one.
And I like the fact that they brought in the dean here to act as a real editor for the newspaper. Because I remember when I was at college, and I was working on the newspaper, we did not have any faculty advisors.
They just let you get on with it, did they?
Yeah. I think the paper came out once a month.
Maybe, the Schuster Herald is writing an awful lot of stories about Superboy. Maybe they're just getting a little bit of outside pressure to actually make the paper a little bit higher quality. Since it's the only form of news that gets the exclusives for some reason. Purely because they're local. It is funny though, because I think everybody assumes that Superboy is a student at Schuster. They just don't know who. Because why else would he be there all the time?
Right.
Except to hang out with Lana. Maybe that's enough of a solution. His girlfriend goes there. It's an interesting character, this Dean, though. I like the fact that she's completely just not charmed at all by TJ, but Clark doesn't even really have to try, but she likes him. It's a funny sort of, yeah. It could be quite a one-note character, but because they've got that little bit of something, it just makes her a little bit more dimensional.
It's almost like that one-note thing that we've talked about before, that one professor character who seems to be...
Oh, the one that loves him and is constantly, oh, Superboy!
Yeah.
But so like fanning herself like she's getting hot when he's around. It's like an old style like Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it's done in a better way with the Dean.
Absolutely. But it's also, I think, it puts forward this thing that sometimes Clark Kent is just kind of ignored by women in stuff. Like, even Christopher Reeve was kind of ignored, even though he's Christopher Reeve in glasses.
Yeah.
Like, he's a handsome man. It's why he was chosen for the role. Well, one of the reasons. Mm. I like that in Lois and Clark and in Superboy, occasionally you'll have someone that actually recognises that Clark isn't just a nerdy guy. Like, they've worked out that actually he's not a bad looking dude. I think it's very easy for Hollywood and TV and stuff just to immediately write off a character like that and say, oh, none of the women like Clark, they only like Superboy, which would have been very, very easy. I appreciate that they didn't do that. Or at least didn't do it all the time.
Does the dorm room look different?
I mean, the left side of the room certainly was bigger.
No, I'm talking about... Normally, it's like a white wall, and now it's brown.
Huh. Maybe like I guess that they tear the set down between. I'm guessing it's one of those things where they literally just come in with the walls and then bring the desks in and the beds in. Mm. Maybe they used the wrong walls, or maybe they had to repaint it for a different scene, and this was a reshoot or something. I don't know. At some point, we will have to actually sit down and just flick through all the episodes and see how many changes there are to the dorm room. I think the only season it was consistent was the season that Andy was there.
Yeah, it's almost like during season 2 they had a dedicated room to use all the time. Yeah.
Whereas here, maybe they had to, rebuild it each time. Even if it was just, walls on wheels that they could slide in each time.
And I'm liking how stern Stuart Whitman is getting here as Jonathan.
I'm just thinking as well. I mean, maybe I know they shot an awful lot of the first season on an actual college campus. Maybe the room that they usually shot in just wasn't available, so they had to make do with another one. It's like, well, the rooms are the same size. You can still decorate it, and they get in there and see the walls are brown. Who knows? Maybe because maybe that's one of the things they actually shot on an actual set, and maybe it became too difficult, so eventually they built their own version of it. But I don't know. Mike Carlin, if you're watching, please tell us why the hell is the room brown?
And what you were saying before about this actor, the way he's pulling it off.
Mm.
That scene when he's sitting in the van just watching them, he's almost got like like a manic, obsessed energy to him.
Mm.
Just in the way his eyes are bugging out.
Definitely. And I've got to say, though, as good as that guy was at the start of this episode, Stuart Whitman, I think, is better when he gets taken over. I think he's the scariest part of this two-parter. Seeing Pa Kent being outright cruel and violent, yeah.
Borderline sadistic.
Yeah. And, he was so good as Pa Kent. And you know Pa Kent, if you're a fan of the comics, you know enough about Pa Kent to know that he's just a lovely man. Same as like Ma Kent is just a really smashing person. I don't know. So when you see him acting so out of character, it's genuinely quite disturbing. I think Stuart Whitman, being the absolute pro that he was, pulled it off flawlessly. It's funny, when I was a kid, I used to play a game where I'd be looking for fake police vehicles in TV shows because they would be so easy to spot most of the time because the show didn't have a budget to do it properly. Right. It's been so long now since this was made, I can't play that game anymore because I've forgotten what what they actually looked like back then now. But every time I see that police van, I'm just like, so it's just a white van that they stuck the word police on the side. That's all they really needed it to be. I don't know why I just brought that up. It's funny. We always talk about TJ as being the better roommate for Andy. I don't know. I think even Lana and TJ had better chemistry and scenes together. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I get what they were going for with Andy, but yeah, I don't know.
As much
TJ's
as I
just
love
better.
Andy in certain respects, he does come off as kind of a one-note sleazeball character.
Occasionally. Obviously, we've talked about before, there are definitely moments where he is absolutely not that. Programmed for Death is one where Andy gets a little bit more dimension. We get some context regarding who his father is. Like, that's why Andy's personality is the way he is.
Yeah,
but we never even needed that with TJ. Like, we know his father is Perry White, but that's it. TJ just, I don't know, he always just felt like he was a more fully formed character. Probably just purely because he's basically the Jimmy Olsen of this show, so they just had to write him like Jimmy. Man, I really, really wish Jim Calvert could have actually played Jimmy Olsen, because I think he would have been maybe the best ever. Always like that. Just completely burns off the Clark Kent outfit and somehow his hair gets styled and... I know I'm poking holes, but I'm doing it out of love for this show. Yeah, so definitely not a real Police fan since they had to smash it up. But yeah.
And again, they may have bought it cheap from a police auction.
Maybe they just had to remove part of the side and put a weaker thing in. It is interesting though that they're all there. Even Peterson's there. I mean, I'm guessing that this is a Schuster sort of student function type thing.
It is. Probably... Yeah, it's the agricultural center.
Right. Well, I guess Peterson is, Peterson, we never really found out what his. Oh, I always liked that dummy that just sort of falls over. But now, Peterson, we never found out really what his speciality is in science. Like, what's his focus? He's just kind of mad scientist, does a bit of everything. But I guess he's here because he's also into botany or something. I imagine, if it was Professor Peterson instead of Mark Watney that was stranded on Mars in The Martian, I imagine Peterson would have survived too. Probably a lot quicker, actually, because he'd just, find a way to contact Superboy and say, "Can you come and fly me home, please?" You wouldn't even need to, really. The moment Superboy saw on TV that Peterson was stuck on Mars, he would just be like, "Right, see you in a bit." See, this is a great scene because Pa can't act the way that he's actually feeling because he doesn't want to. Like, right now he's scared for his son, but he has to act like he's just sort of worried about a superhero. He can't even go over and sort of, comfort him or anything. Like, because as this persona, Peterson is that guy. It's got to be very difficult for him.
Very much so, yeah.
I mean, I'm probably reaching a little bit, but I think that's the point of analysis.
I definitely think that given the experience that Stuart Whitman has had over the years up until this point, he used to do movies with John Wayne. So, he's an experienced actor. So, this is...
Superboy turned back and looked at him and he just gave a quick little wink, subtle. Like Ishi just said, he works with John Wayne. He's just an absolute professional and he can go big or he can go subtle. Like, even just... Yeah. He's just very good in this role. Sorry to have interrupted you just then.
No. We do it all the time, Tom.
Yeah. Professor Peterson and, Inspector Harris, I really wish they had both continued on through all 4 seasons because, man, of all the allies that they had in Superboy, like, he had some of his best ones in the first season. I wouldn't say I like them more than, say, like Matt Ritter or Dennis Jackson, but yeah. So there we go. That was Revenge of the Alien Part 1. I'm just going to skip through the end credits now so we can just talk about this. A really good episode, I think the first guy that was taken over by the alien, as we said while watching, was very, very good. Stuart Whitman, when he gets taken over, it's only for a moment at the end of this episode, but I don't know, when the thing's flying into his ear, he's not going over the top. Like, I think you could have gone bigger with that. And he went to just the right level, in my opinion. Because if he did go bigger, there'd be no excuse for why, somebody like Lana would be like, "What are you doing, Jonathan?
Yeah,
why are you going like..."
He does a little shake to his head when
Yeah. So, right at the end, and then he sort of like looks up, like his eyes roll, and
and anybody walking up could have thought, oh, maybe he's just stretching his neck or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's had a slight tremor.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been a huge deal. It was just subtle enough that you can excuse people not noticing, but just big enough that it makes sense for what's actually happening in the scene.
Yeah.
But shall we get straight into part 2 now?
Oh, absolutely. All
right. Do you want to count us in for this one, or shall I do it?
I'll do it.
Cool.
All right. So let's get ready, everybody, for part 2 of Revenge of the Alien. So I'm going to count you in with a 3, 2, 1. All right. So 3, 2, 1, go.
Right. So yeah, I mean Stuart Whitman. You can't say enough about him as Pa Kent. Really, I think he's just one of the best. I don't think that. What's the name of the actor that played it in Superman the movie?
Glenn Ford.
Glenn Ford. He's another absolutely smashing actor. Like he's phenomenal. I just don't think he had quite enough screen time, but thankfully he was in there just enough that the essence of the character was obvious, and the death scene is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe
And
I
who
think
knows?
I prefer Stuart Whitman purely because he had more screen time and more development. Really.
Yeah. Who knows if they had kept doing the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve? Had 3 not been as divisive as it was, maybe we would have
And then
gotten.
4 being an utter train wreck.
Well, I like 4, but I like 4 because I've read the comic book adaptation. I've also read the novelization. I know what they were planning.
Yeah, you can see the potential of the premise. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
And our buddy Aaron Price is doing his own fan edit of it. He's honestly, I think he's correcting a lot of the VF, just the VFX just looked awful in the original.
yeah,
His version looks so much better. It's like they actually put the money into it that they had for the first 2 films. Yep, just a little bit of a shake and then his eyes roll. Subtle. That's all you need. They probably could have even done it without the special effects and you would have understood that something's happening. You would have just assumed that the thing was already inside him, maybe. But here we go. Yeah, I think the only thing I don't like about the season 1 suit is just the symbol. I think it looks a bit too
small.
A bit too small, but also it looks so similar to the the trademark S that they plaster on everything and have done since like the 70s. It's always that exact same version of the S, and I don't know. I just associate it with dressing up, like fancy dress or costume stuff you would get as a kid, like the little Superman costumes you would get with the crap like Velcro on capes and stuff.
Yeah, that's why Gerard's symbol from season 2 forward was so much better.
Yeah. Let's face it, if you were to combine Gerard's season 4 suit with maybe Dean Kane's suit, you basically have the Alex Ross Superman suit. And obviously not the Kingdom Come version. I mean, when he does the Superman in his prime suit. But it also reminds me of when you see in comics, there's some comic book artists who are absolutely super talented, but for some reason, I guess they can't draw the symbol, so they just copy and paste the symbol over their artwork, and you can always tell because it just doesn't look right.
Yeah, not everybody is as good as John Byrne when it comes to doing that symbol. I mean, he's talked about how he does it, and it's I always see it as 2 fishes swimming above each other.
Yeah. I think since I grew up as such a huge Superman fan, I would pretty much doodle that symbol constantly. So it's just one of those things where I could probably just draw it any time now. But it's about the only thing I can draw easily.
And I like how the Dean is trying to impress Mr. Kent here. She's trying to be friendly and respectful, and the alien
is just
he's being a dick.
Yeah, he's taking an opportunity to fuck with Clark's life a little bit. But the way that I want to call him Jonathan, but I know it's the alien. But the way I'll just keep calling him Whitman. But the way Whitman was delivering that thing was quite creepy. The way he keeps looking at Lana is equally creepy, and there's a reason why he's slightly disturbing in his performance in this episode.
Well, remember, he's been in Lana's body before, so.
That's what she said.
How did I know you were going to say
that? My apologies for my dirty mind.
Wasn't the first, and it certainly won't be the last.
No, I'm sure I'll make plenty of cheeky jokes in the years to come. But I like that the alien in this scene, he's almost he's doing it to hurt Superboy and to stop him from being Superboy anymore, in theory. But
he's saying it in such a way that it sounds like, what a parent would be saying.
yeah, it's possible that Pa could actually say this. He wouldn't, but it's a similar sort of thing to we just watched Rebirth very recently. Also a very good 2-part episode. But Superboy in that obviously thinks that he's killed someone. And Pa in this is like, Superboy needs to preserve human life at all costs. It's a similar sort of theme. But Rebirth shows how Pa would actually respond in that situation. And this is sort of, because it's an alien taking over, and maybe because Clark hasn't been doing this for very long, it's believable. Clark is taken in by it. And yeah, I think all credit goes to the writers.
Yep. And also the alien could actually be tapping into the memories of the person who he's possessed.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. I think that's how... Oh, no, because he knew from spying on Superboy his identity. I was wondering if he found that out by trying to get into his ear in that earlier scene, but no.
No.
Yeah, it's possible they can access some of the memories. Because I imagine, some of these bodies that the alien had in the first episode, I imagine, it's not just the bodies that are powerful. It almost seems like he was taking on their fighting styles as well.
Yeah.
So unless it's just the muscle memory that he takes on, maybe he can access just a little bit of their...
Yeah, because taking on muscle memory, that's one thing. But being able to actually use the weapon that the samurai, we'll call him, had.
Yeah. The space samurai,
Yeah. There's no way that he would be able to use that just by watching him in combat. And now he realizes what's going on.
And this is maybe the creepiest scene in the episode, the way that he's... Yeah, the way he not just speaks to Lana, but the way he actually treats her in a moment. Yeah. It's funny because he's almost pulling it off, his cover, that he's actually Jonathan Kent. But there's just enough sinisterness. That's not even a word. He's just sinister enough.
Yes.
That it works. And now this is just when it really starts.
This is where he blows his cover, kind of. But Lana doesn't even pick up on it.
Yeah. Because you never would suspect it from Jonathan Kent. He's just too good a human being. But yeah, this whole scene is... If it wasn't the fact that it was in the middle of, the Everglades, presumably, since they shot in Florida, and surrounded by colour, this would be a lot more harrowing. I'm surprised they even could get away with a scene like this on what it was essentially a children's show.
Yeah.
But then this is, it's also the show where Superboy saved Lana from a serial killer rock star who had a sex dungeon. So
yeah. Let's not talk about that.
No, we've done a commentary on that episode. I think we're fine leaving it in the past now. I'll probably watch it again at some point, but not for the show. Unless we really get stuck for content one day.
And we were talking about it before. John's acting from the previous episode. Well, the previous part of the Alien trilogy. The Alien Solution. His acting in that was so good, and just that sequence when he realizes that the alien is in Pa, it's like he
had to keep it quiet because TJ would have overheard, so it was almost a whisper, but it was just enough emotion, I thought, that it worked.
Yeah, and just looking at his face, any of the people in the room, they know it's his father, and they're like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
So he's reacting the way they would assume he's reacting. But just the way he's acting in the scene, John, it's so good. It just shows how good of an actor he really was.
It just took him a little while to, figure out how he was going to play the role. I think maybe a lot of the reason why he's so wooden in the original pilot is purely because, one, it was probably one of the very first things he shot as the character. Maybe even the first thing he shot in the suit. We don't know. It's possible. But sometimes with roles like this, it just takes actors a little while just to find it, find the character. By this point, clearly he had found it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
My only complaint is I still don't like the way that he lands and takes off, and that sort of kung fu arm thing he does when he flies. It's the only thing I can complain about in this
part of the Revenge of the Alien. When he takes off, and he's fighting, Johnson with the alien in Johnson when he's got the missile launcher. He actually looks pretty good. He doesn't have that kung fu grip thing.
The way he landed just then, his hands are sort of doing like a claw thing as he landed. It was just a bit strange.
Yeah.
Considering all you really need to do is have him put his arms by his side. It's almost when a superhero's landing, it's almost like the less they do, the more impressive it looks, because he makes it look like their powers are it's effortless to them. It's like breathing.
Yeah. And, that's one of the reasons why Gerard was so good at takeoffs and landings.
Kept it simple. Plus, I think this is true of both of them. He probably just did look at Christopher Reeve in those movies and see how he did it and pulled a little bit from there. I think especially in season 3 and 4, Gerard's flying is absolutely every bit as good as Christopher Reeve on the wires. So it's just a shame it's let down a little bit by compositing and stuff, like when they have green screen. But then even Superman 4 had to deal with that. That was just purely because they cut the budget right down. That takeoff wasn't bad. Poor Lana, though, she's really going through it in these Alien episodes.
Yeah, she gets attacked and almost killed. Possessed.
It's almost a shame that the Alien character couldn't keep coming back, because it would make a pretty interesting alternate nemesis for Superboy. We know Lex Luthor is his main bad guy, but if they'd done like a 2-part episode every season with the Alien keep coming back, I would have happily watched it. I think he would have made a really interesting ongoing nemesis, purely because I don't think anyone else got quite as close as he did in trying to take out Lana. Like, Lex tried God knows how many times to kidnap her or kill her, whatever. Always was stopped. The Alien almost succeeded a couple of times. He might be the most dangerous villain Superboy even faced on the show, really.
Yeah, and now we definitely see that it is a Coke bottle that's been repainted.
But I tell you what, John's suit, I always thought he always looked a lot more muscular than Gerard in the suit, which is funny because they were in very similar shape. I wonder if they just gave John a suit that was too small or something. Maybe that's why.
Possibility. And this is very interesting that, Superboy is the only one of anybody that the alien has possessed who is sort of like fighting control.
Yeah. He's still so strong that he can almost force him out. Which is probably how he was able to, suck him into that bottle and expel it again at the end of the first Alien episode. Maybe he just did it so quickly that the alien couldn't grab hold of anything, metaphorically.
Yep.
Or figuratively, whichever the word is.
and now he's fighting with the alien in his body. You know, the typical split personality trope from old TV shows.
And I like that the alien is smart enough in this to try to weaponize Pa's love for his son, to try and convince him to shut off the kryptonite. It is funny that he didn't even give him a chance to actually shut down the thing because he just lost his temper. It's like...
I'm not sure, but I think that's actually Stuart Whitman doing the stunts there.
I did just notice that at one point it was definitely a stuntman because the stuntman's hair is short. Like there, when he got thrown over the table, the stuntman's got shorter hair. Every now and then in the widest shots, you can tell, but Stuart Whitman's doing a lot of it himself. I mean, how long had he been working in Hollywood? Like, he must have done his own. He must have done his own fight scenes quite a few times in that all that time.
Well, if you work with John Wayne, you got to do your own fight scenes.
Yeah. I think any actor that's appeared in more than one Western from back in the day has probably done plenty of fight scenes.
And this whole sequence here is what convinces me that Peterson knows Clark's secret.
Oh, I guarantee he does. Peterson is too intelligent. I wouldn't even be surprised if Harris knows. I don't think Harris has had quite as many clues, but I think Harris is a good enough detective that he probably has worked it out. Just like I'm sure Lois Lane always works it out sooner than they say in the comics or shows. But I think that's just something that comes with fandom. You know, we always have slightly different ideas to the writers about how long a character has known something. Now, I'm sure Lana knows as well. I'm sure Lana has known for quite some time.
She just doesn't want to admit it.
I've got to say, you know, George Chakiris, is that how you pronounce it? Or was it Chakiris?
I don't know. I always pronounce it Chakiris.
Chakiris. He's just fantastic as Peterson. I know I've said it so many times, but I just really wish that character had come back more. Especially in seasons 3 and 4. Like, there's a few references to him, but you don't actually get to see him. And I don't know, I think it's a shame. I will say as well, I think the ice effects that they put on his suit and on his face were pretty well done. You know, I've seen similar effects done much, much worse. They kept it just subtle enough to make it realistic. Yeah. Peterson knows. Peterson knows.
The problem that I have is the alien here.
You're roboting a little. I can't understand anything you're saying. You've frozen and you sound like a robot. No, you're completely frozen.
Oh, crap.
Oh, you came back for a split second and now you're frozen again. Oh, with 2 minutes to spare, folks.
How about now?
I could sort of understand it, but you still sound like a robot. It's completely frozen. I don't know if you will be on the recording, but on my screen, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take a screenshot in a moment. I'm going to take a screenshot to send you after we've finished recording so you can see what you look like.
Okay.
You're back.
Oh, okay.
What was you saying?
What I was trying to say is when they froze the alien, I don't think that was the end of the alien, really.
No. Because surely if it's a gaseous form, like the moment that freezer defrosts, the alien's free again.
Yeah.
Or at least you would assume. They better not have a power cut on campus.
I'm sure that Peterson probably went into the freezer, cleaned it all up, and then put it back in the freezer.
Yeah.
And and what
Or even clean it up, like put it into like a container they can seal, and just say like, Superboy, go throw this into the sun.
Yeah. What leads me to believe that that's not the end of the Alien is, what does Clark do at the end of the first part of the trilogy? He puts them in a bottle,
in the freezer,
and then puts the bottle in the freezer.
And this one ends with it in the freezer. So, yeah, maybe for season 5 we can bring back the Alien, and we could just open it with another thief breaking into the freezer, and maybe when he leaves, he just leaves the door open or something, and that's enough to defrost it. Simple, but it'll be fine. I don't have a story for the Alien at the moment anyway, but whatever it is, it will involve the Traveller from the comics as well.
Yep.
And we will reveal that they are indeed the same species. So there we go. Revenge of the Alien Part 2. I do think I prefer the Alien Solution. I think the Pa Kent stuff in this is fantastic, but I do think the Alien Solution is just slightly more of a tight story.
Yeah.
I appreciate that the way they extended this to 2 episodes was by introducing like the subplot with like TJ's, the editor at the newspaper, the dean. I forget her actual name, but yeah, like that whole subplot wasn't really necessary, because you kind of can get away with that scene later on anyway, when she meets Pa. You don't really need the earlier scene setting that up. You just have to understand that she's running the newspaper. It's one line of dialogue that could have done it. But I appreciate that if they needed to extend it into 2 episodes, or even if they just wanted to, I appreciate that they did it by doing more character development stuff. I would always rather they have an extra scene or 2 of character development over just a pointless action scene that serves no purpose. I know some people are of the opposite, opinion regarding that stuff. There's a lot of people that would absolutely take an extra action scene over a dialogue scene.
Yeah,
but
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay, yeah, some of the some of this era of Star Trek certainly as well. A lot less talky scenes, although Strange New Worlds is probably the best in that regard. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. We've finally done the Alien trilogy in our commentaries. This doesn't mean that we
a few moments.
What was that? Apart from you froze and turned into a robot for a minute. But yeah, this is just a really fun 3-part story. One of the best parts of season 1 is this trilogy. And, just because I think the first part is better than the next 2 episodes, that's not to say those 2 are bad. 9.5 is what we rated the first part. What would you give this? We'll count both parts together of Revenge.
I would give this like a 9.25.
Yeah. I was going to go for a 9, but I mean, I could see a 9.25. Yeah, just purely because of Stuart Whitman's performance, really.
And the character stuff that's in this, is what brings it up. I mean, there's a few things that could have been done a little bit better.
Absolutely.
I think Lieutenant Harris is he's kind of wasted a little bit in it.
Yeah, he's really underutilized. Like, he's there, but he doesn't really do much. Like, he points a gun occasionally.
Yeah, until the second part when he and Superboy are talking about the break-in.
Yeah, that serves a purpose. Yeah.
But I mean, any police officer could have done that.
Yeah. And what did Harris do when Pa was on top of the parking lot thing with Lana with a gun to her head? Was Harris there? I assume he was. I must have skipped over it.
He was there. He was trying to be the hostage negotiator.
That's a good role for him. I guess he did have stuff to do. It's just, I don't know.
He was more underutilized in part 1 than he was in part 2.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, 9.25 is nothing to be sniffed at. It's a very good episode, or very good story, rather, since it is too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a reason why these are kind of legendary episodes. There's a reason why this trilogy is the turning point for the show. It's, a lot of people will point to this, especially the Alien Solution anyway, and say like, yeah, that's when you could notice that the show just, the quality took a jump. It's
Yeah.
suddenly you can tell something's different. So yeah, very important episodes that I think deserve any Superman fans respect, really, because it signals a course correction. Because yeah, some of the stuff in season 1 is almost shockingly bad, but then you have episodes like Alien Solution that are just that good, and it makes up for it completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on this.
Yeah. The only thing that I would have to say is, Stuart Whitman's performance in it, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
When he meets the possessed Sergeant Johnson, he's being the typical father. He's standing up for his son. When he says, if you've got a paper, I'll let you in. But if you don't have a paper, you come back with one.
Yeah.
And then when he gets possessed, he's very subtle about the possession at first, and then he's just amping it up one step at a time. And
it's almost like he's getting impatient.
Yeah. And then that scene when he kind of, we'll say, takes advantage of Lana.
Yeah, that's one of the few scenes in this episode that I think could have been toned down slightly, but I guess this is just that much of a threat.
Yeah.
This character is just that evil. I guess it works. I guess it makes sense. I don't know. I think for a kid's show, it towed the line a little bit, but not anywhere near as much, like I say, about the Rockstar Sex Dungeon episode.
Yeah. But what Pa Kent does at the end, he's kind of embarrassed, and he says, I didn't do anything improper while I was possessed, did I? And I think Lana was kind of shielding Pa Kent because she realized it was not Pa Kent. She says, you could never do anything improper.
It wasn't him, the alien had just taken control of his body. It was a body snatching thing. You can't hold them responsible. It's like, it's like in Stargate. You can't hold like a character that's been possessed by a Goa'uld responsible for what that Goa'uld does with their body. It's just, it doesn't make sense. They're a human host that has zero control over what their evil, parasite is doing. It's the same with Pa here, and it's a similar sort of moment to there's a season 1 episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called The Pack, which is not a good episode. It's the one where Xander and the bullies get possessed by hyena demons. And at the end of the episode, Xander pretends that he doesn't remember, and Giles reveals like he knows that amnesia at the end of that possession isn't a thing. He knows Xander remembers, and Xander just kind of gets him to swear to secrecy because he doesn't want to admit that he remembers the horrible way that he treated Buffy and Willow in that episode. And yeah, it's a similar sort of thing. You can't really hold them responsible because essentially it's like a form of demonic possession.
Yeah.
It's like nobody blames the girl in The Exorcist.
Yeah. And the whole thing with Pa Kent, he doesn't remember any of what happened. It's all fog to him.
Yeah. So, he's even less accountability for it because it's almost like he just wasn't there. It's like, Pa Kent was just sort of switched off for a bit. But I
he
thought
was essentially in a coma for those couple of hours.
Yeah, it was like in some media when you have like split personality characters and they say that one sort of just goes to sleep for a bit and then the other one takes control, and when that one goes to sleep the other one takes control. It's just Jekyll and Hyde type stuff, really.
Yep.
Except in this case Jekyll and Hyde, it's not like a dark side of his personality. It's literally an alien parasite. Really interesting themes. Like it's stuff that we've seen 1,000 times before, but I think it's all down to the execution. And like I say, I think the Alien Solution is the better executed episode, but Revenge of the Alien is an absolutely fine sequel. You know, it's one of the few sequels that people always say the sequel's nowhere near as good as the original. I think this one comes pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's a very close second.
Absolutely. But anyway, that is it. Thank you all so much for watching this 3-part commentary thing. Maybe we should have claimed that this is another of these mini-series, but nah, I'll just release it as regular episodes, because why the hell not? Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.